Good morning. It is January something, January 30th. And you are here on Trends with Friends. Welcome as always, Riley Roseby, calling in from somewhere, Sedona today.
Yeah, I'm in Sedona. The vortexes have really gotten to me.
And good to see you, Rye. We've got JC, the Cuban Missile Crisis, torn between orange and blue. Why the color?
It's the O's, baby.
Today?
The Orioles of Baltimore. This is greatness.
That's cool. I didn't see. Wow. I mean, lucky his wife lets him be an 8-year-old. I mean, his wife is great. She lets him be an 8-year-old all day.
It's baseball season coming up. Pitchers and catchers.
And then the man who lived in a hoodie for 40 years, Phil, the Pearl Institute. Do you even have a bed? You just lie down in a hoodie. You have lived the hoodie life. Kiki. And Kiki in the background. So I'm in Coronado, where I do my best work. Welcome, boys. A lot to talk about today. I'm excited for the direction of the show. We have some production help that we've brought on, the cut and slice and dice and bring on guests. Riley's going to start working on some premium products for Trends with Friends, events. And I got blinds finally put in. I am wearing today, I got to tell you a quick story, alligator story. It's a fucking great story. I know sometimes you read my blog, but this one defies unbelievable. So
you have a blog?
So JC, newsletter. So, I don't know. Do you prefer the term blog or newsletter? Do you like the term blog or newsletter, Phil?
I'm OG, Howard.
So I should say blog.
Your blog is really like just concise and consistent. And those two, I hate to give you any credit, but yeah, your blog, that is like those two things I think people get forgotten. Concise and consistent. Like there's something to be said for that. Perlman does a great job with that in his blog. The difference is, Howard, when we started doing this, and you before me, and Perlman before me technically too, Riley was in diapers, and it started off as literally posting on a blog. These days, you're posting it on a blog and then you're sending it to people, right? We didn't used to do that. We probably should have, but we didn't then. That's the difference.
Tech wasn't there. Tech wasn't there. The idea is the web, you went to the web. The web wasn't a push web.
But you could subscribe back then. Like you could, you've been able to subscribe
Google
for a long
Reader.
time. We just called it a blog.
Google
Reader was sick.
Google Blogger.
Yeah.
Google Blogger. You had RSS, which is still better than anything we have today. We're going to bring that back. So let me tell you a quick story. In Miami,
that's a T-shirt. Bring RSS back.
It's not a bad T-shirt.
Dave Weiner and a profile of Dave Weiner.
We're going to get a lot done. So far,
Dave Weiner's still on Twitter preaching RSS, by the way. So we haven't lost him yet.
We've interrupted ourselves a record amount of time so far. So it's RSS meets Fibonacci. I think we've crossed the point. We're in a RSS
listen, tell me about your
alligator. Listen, this is a fucking crazy story. So I'm in Miami. Doing the Miami Carbones thing with friends and this other place, anyways. And Heidi Klum was there, blah, blah, blah. My friend reads my blog newsletter. Jack Newhouse is a great trader. We're going to have him on the show. Probably one of the best options trader I know, runs his own firm. Anyways, he's a member at a course called Calusa Pines. Riley, you may know, it's a very famous course built out of a swamp in Naples. By a guy who loved golf and didn't have a course in Naples. Anyways, I go there. He invites me. I hop in an Uber 7 a.m. I suck at golf. But a nice time to play in Calusa. Anyways, I'm walking. There's alligators. This is a swamp. So the first time I was there about 7 years ago, I ran across a couple alligators. Nothing dangerous. Just saw them and took a couple pictures.
This is in Coral Gables, right?
Calusa Pines, Naples. So I took an Uber 2 hours to Naples from Miami to go play golf.
Animal, dude. Animal.
Yeah, animal. So 7 a.m. Uber, tee off time 10:30. We're on the course, sweaty. It's a beautiful day, but sweating. And I hit a ball, as always, to the right and near the water. This old wily caddy comes up and he goes, you can't get too close to the water. I go, pal, I've been here, done that. Know about the Gators. He goes, well, there was a guy who said the same thing as you, and next thing you know, he's missing a finger. And I'm like, okay, like this is like an Ansa Minor campfire story, right? And so I assume it's so made up, Phil, that I don't even bring it up with Jack, who's the member. I'm going, this fucking wily guy is just scaring me. Don't ask another question about this guy. I think it's all made up. Anyways, we go for dinner that night. Jimmy P's, oh my God, JC, we should do a trip and do a show from Jimmy P's. Best steak I've ever had. Wagyu, Wagyu charred. It's a butcher. Oh, so we're eating dinner. Jack invites a friend. Jack doesn't tell me, orthopedic surgeon. Jack, so the friend comes, we have dinner, he goes, end of dinner, he goes, Howard, why don't you tell Howard your story about the alligator? Okay, so I'm like, I'm all busy. He looks like his face is all normal, like his shoulders are there, both his hands. So he's telling me the story about this time. He's playing golf with his buddies. He's a member. He's a scratch golfer. He's playing in a big match. Hits the ball right. It was like in May. Water was receded. You know, you could see where the alligators are, and he hits the ball right, kind of roll right to the edge of the water. He looks in, sees no alligator, puts his hand down to grab the ball, and out comes from those black pipes that are exposed, a fucking gator. And next thing you know, he's looking at his finger, it's pouring blood in his eye, his middle finger. This is an orthopedic surgeon. Okay. And so the whole story comes full circle. The guy the caddy was telling about was this guy. Now he's telling me the story about the caddy, about the alligator that took his finger. Anyways, long story short, I would have bled out right there. I probably would have called a lawyer and my wife and bled out on scene. This fucking guy puts a tourniquet on. I go, I own this course. First day I was bleeding out. I go, this is my course now. Anyways,
it's my children. Because I'm dying.
No, fuck the trust. Keep the course. So anyways, he figures out how to tourniquet himself. Lesson number 2. He is the orthopedic surgeon on call that moment. So all his friends, while he's getting driven to the airport, his phone starts ringing because who is everybody calling? His friends are calling the hospital saying we're bringing in a guy. He's on call, but his phone's ringing saying we got a guy coming in with a fucking torn off finger from an alligator. So he was going to have to surgeon himself. So anyways, he goes through his book, finds a surgeon, gets it done. He now has if it had gone another centimeter, he wouldn't be allowed to be an orthopedic surgeon. Long story short, I want to do a documentary because he's hunting. The alligator is still there. It's illegal to hunt it. He can't kill it. He knows exactly the square mile that it's in. He's bought all kinds of weaponry to take out this fucking alligator, and he can't.
He's a real life Happy Gilmore.
It's fucking real life Happy Gilmore. It is one of the best stories I've ever heard to be completed. Anyways, so this is why you sometimes get in an Uber and do spontaneous things because Jimmy P's and the alligator store made it one of the better nights.
There's got to be a happy medium between Perlman's I'm not traveling the whole year versus 2-hour Ubers on right Perlman. There's got to be somewhere in the middle. That's where I like to live.
I'm traveling twice. I'm going to Costa Rica for vacation, and I'm going to go visit my mom, and that's it. I'm going to see if I can stick to it. It's a kind of a thing, like I only fly twice the whole year. Never have to worry about rushing to the airport and being tired when you get back.
I've traveled with you, Phil. Let me just say, from someone who's traveled with you, this is a gift that you're giving the world.
It's a gift to everybody else on the plane. It's a gift. It's a gift to
you
nobody has to smell him.
In your and just the stuff that comes off of him, like this, like skin and fluff.
So what is this? That's a one day, guys. What are the charts?
Right, let's get to it.
Roman, hold on. Okay, so I want to. Can we do it backwards this time? We always end with the health. I wanted to start with the health this time. Can we do
Good
that?
Idea.
Okay, I got one for you today, but you go ahead.
So here's the question.
Let's start with
this is real life. This is real life.
Go ahead.
So last night I wanted to go to bed early because I wanted to get up early this morning and do a bunch of stuff. Right, that was the plan. Okay, so if you want to get up early and do a bunch of stuff, go to bed early. Right. Okay.
Good.
I had a great day yesterday, both health-wise. I ate all protein. I was great. No boozing. I think I had like a glass of wine, maybe half a glass of wine, nothing. And
all protein.
But I had a great day. Is
that all protein?
Great day, work-wise also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't sleep. It's 9:00 at night, tossing and turning. I'm so fired up for the next day. I can't sleep, right? So what do? I go downstairs. I'm like, what would Perlman do right now? Like, what am I going to do? So I poured out the Sambuca. I had a glass of Sambuca and I laid down, had another glass of Sambuca, and I was out by like 10:30, 11 on the couch though. Woke up at 1, then went upstairs. But that was my solution. What else should I do? I don't have trouble, by the way, I don't have trouble sleeping ever. I sleep great. So that was weird.
We dropped Phil. We dropped some ballast. JC, let's walk through the markets.
Yeah, I mean, let's remember that the Vanguard total market fund just closed at a new all-time high yesterday.
Okay.
Right? So which is not surprising when you look at what's in it. It's the biggest companies, a lot of things are doing great. You know the names, Apple, Microsoft, Google, et cetera. But throw up that first slide there that shows what's happening underneath the surface, which really shouldn't be surprising, which is consistent with what we've seen in the past. And that's when you have these massive expansions in stocks making new highs and participating to the upside, which we did in December. We had some of the biggest breath thrusts that we've seen in years since spring of 2020, which means that there was just, everything was working. Everything was going up. Throw a dart at the screen, you're going to make money. That's just what it is. That is consistent with early cycle. So 4-year business cycle, multi-year bull market cycle. You see that stuff near the beginning. Like in early 2021, we saw it in the beginning, right? All right. When you zoom into those moments, that tends to be a little bit of exhaustive behavior. That just relentless buying, just get me in, right? Or get me out of my shorts also, more importantly, or just as important. You get that short-term weakness, that corrective action after that exhaustion. Again, in the short term, bigger picture that's very bullish historically early on, but short term, it's slightly exhaustive. Over the last 7 weeks since then, December the 14th, we've seen a decline in new highs. 1-month highs, 3-month highs, 52-week highs. Fewer stocks are going up. Not that that's bad for the market, just that it's mostly mathematically impossible for there to be more stocks going up. Like, they were all going up, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's impossible for more of them to go up if all of them, essentially all of them were already going up. So you need that like digestion, like, okay, cool off. Things can still go up. A lot of things can still go up, just not as many. And that's what we're seeing now. And we've sort of seen that corrective action. During that corrective action, it's actually been really impressive just how well breath has hung in there. And the narratives continue. JC, it's only technology. JC, it's only technology. Let me ask you this. Throw the next one. Let me ask you this. If it's only technology that's driving the market, then why is the largest bellwether in industrials making new all-time highs? And why is the largest bellwether in the financials making new all-time highs? How is it only technology? My suspicion is that most people haven't taken the time to look. Like if you say, oh, it's just tech. Like, have you looked? Like, have you even looked to see if it's only tech? Chances are you haven't. In other cases, it's more sinister. They're specifically lying to you to feed some narrative to get you to consume their content because it's, they're no longer in the business of telling the truth because you don't make good money doing that. The good business is in lying to people and sensationalizing. So it's either you haven't looked. I don't think it's because you're dumb because these aren't dumb people. Either you haven't looked or it's malicious because it's not just tech. We know that, right? It's not even close. In fact, it's not just even large caps. Go to the next one. Small cap industrials are making new all-time highs. Small cap consumer discretionary, small cap technology, all outperforming the S&P 500 this year. So people are like, oh, small caps aren't working. Maybe your small caps aren't working. But there are a lot of small caps that have been working this whole time. If you say small caps aren't working, it's because you haven't looked. You haven't looked.
I think the key word there. Welcome back, Phil. We cured JC. Before you left, JC was diagnosed with cancer, and I healed him with whale oil. So Phil, we were just ripping through the markets here. I think, JC, the key word, because you do this so well, is suspicion. We're not telling people what to do. Reading, what we teach people here on Trends with Friends is you don't need to read news. You can tune in here once a week and see JC rip through what's actually happening with price. And such a good word for all of this is we're putting together pieces of a puzzle. Because we get suspicious. Like, we hear something, and I hate that word narrative even now because everybody's globbed onto the idea that we're being sold a narrative. it's not fake news. It's not narratives. It's a little bit of both. It could be a lot of both. But our job with Two Eyes and all this technology and mentor network is to look at the price action, talk amongst ourselves, form hypotheses and suspicions, and then invest accordingly with risk management. So I think, JC, you nailed it. There's a really nice pullback in a lot of stuff that got extended. And now look at Solana. There's some stuff that is the most speculative, non-cash flowing type ideas still working. Solana went from 20 to 120, pulled back to 80, back above 100 today. Helium, Render. So the most crazy speculative things that the crypto people love, and they're the most simple ideas that do make sense, are working. Spotify, which I don't know how many times has been sold for dead, that Amazon Prime, that Apple can beat them, too many executives, no margin. Spotify's basically, if you take out ZERP, they're at all-time highs today and stronger than ever because of technology and them being an app that people love. So underneath the surface, a lot of stuff, is still working. And then we can go to semiconductors, which I'll get to later, and then our India stuff, make my trip. You talked about Germany. The Himmler index is, there's not a tech stock in sight, but is at all-time highs. And,
what, in India?
I can't believe the German DAX.
No, India's got
all-time highs.
India's got tech.
India. I said Germany doesn't have much tech.
Oh, sorry. No.
Yeah. But India looks fantastic. Any more, JC, for you to go through? And then
here's the thing. Here's the thing that's going unnoticed. Everything you're saying is right? Which is, as much as it pains me to say that, everything you're saying is absolutely right. What I think people are failing to notice is how many different sectors you're mentioning. You heard that, Pearl Dog? We're talking about Germany. We're talking about India. We're talking about technology, and you mentioned semiconductor stocks. We're talking about industrials, financials, with JP Morgan making new all-time highs. That sector rotation, that keep handing the baton off and moving on to the next one, go back and study every bull market in history. That's exactly what you're going to see. More and more sectors participating. In fact, throw up the chart, because here's my trade. I like this breakout in Marathon. When we're looking for stocks, Lindzon lives on the new 52-week highs list, right? Mm-hmm. Lindzon loves relative strength. You always, as long as I've known you, you've loved relative strength. Marathon Petroleum, how many energy stocks are making new all-time highs, right? The refining stocks are the ones that are showing the most relative strength. This is a monster breakout that then consolidated, that is now breaking out again. I think this thing has more legs. I think this thing goes well above 200. Looks great. Above those former highs from last year.
What's the timber symbol? Okay, let me give you an example of how stupid I am, because we could do that. We could do. You
don't like that one? You don't like that trade?
No, we could do a show called "How Stupid Is Howie." What I'm saying is that, and people need to remember this, because we only have an hour. Hey, Phil's back.
That's a movie.
Welcome. That's like a teed that up. Welcome back, Phil. Here's a tee up to take down Howard. My internet's out. When I made fun of internet, Phil, my internet doesn't suspiciously go down. So
it just went right down. What is up with that? By the way, the two Sambucas, I don't recommend that. That's not part of the promo program.
What would you have suggested I did? What would you have suggested I did?
You probably take a shower. Take a hot shower, or maybe
with your
read
wife,
for a little bit.
With his wife, right? That would have put him right to bed.
Yeah, just or maybe just read for a little bit. Try to read.
By the way, JC,
read a book.
I didn't think about that.
When you said take off the shorts, all I could think of was my wife said that to me yesterday too, just before we went to bed.
No Sambuca.
Right, so
read.
The problem with the Sambuca is you fall asleep, but you have a light wave sleep. You don't have a deep wave sleep. True. So you wake up in the morning and you're still tired.
The thing is, when I wake up and my ambient's not working, you know what I do? I take another one. All right, so pull back up the MPC
I'm just
chart
saying,
for a second.
I was dreaming about some crazy. I was hiking in the forest, like with snow, and like camping in a cave. Like, it was a wild dream, man. It was wild.
Okay, so
Slept
let's
like a baby.
Well, that's great. If you're having deep dreams, that's a good thing.
Yes, deep dreams are good. I haven't dreamed since the 70s.
Maybe the Sambuca works for
Phil,
you.
I haven't dreamed since the 70s. Is that bad?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's
That
weird.
is weird. It's ambient.
You probably just don't remember.
No, it's ambient. That's it.
The ambient.
I'm dying.
Not a big fan of the ambient.
Anyways, you guys.
It's a conversation.
The good news is you'll own this show much sooner than me because of the ambient. All right, let's
like this?
Take a look at.
You like this trade? You like this trade, Lindzon?
I think it shows everything that I want to talk about in a trend. There's, of course, if we were to talk about this in 2019, we wouldn't have been talking about it. We would have been talking about it in 2020 because I remember in March 2020, oil went negative.
Yeah, of course.
Oil went negative. We weren't buying them on any technical reason. I remember the show that I did.
We were. By the way, that's
oil.
technical. What you're saying is technical.
Technically, they were below zero. Yeah. And here's the problem. I would have flipped out of this in the 20s or 30s at best. Okay. So shame on me. I would have made that trade just on the fact that oil was negative. Okay. Flash forward to this space. Think about how many zillions of investing man hours have been spent talking about Tesla. That if we were to look at this chart from 2022 to today, when the stock has doubled from a great base, when it kind of took out that 88 number in 2022, and compare the amount of messages and time devoted to Tesla to this, right? To oil versus EV. And you will see something that I talk about all the time. Marathon today is probably the best performing stock since the March 2020 bottoms. I never heard about it until today.
Marathon? No, you're thinking Alpha Metallurgical. AMR is the one you're thinking.
No, but the oil chart looks like this. Yeah. So what I'm saying is this has 7,000 followers on Stocktwits. It's had high relative price strength in an industry that's been on fire and no one is talking about it. It's that no one is talking about it is that extra thing that you read. The suspicion that I have about these companies is the less people talking about a great sector with great price relative strength, the better. And that's kind of what we're working on as well behind the scenes.
62 billion, by the way. 62 billion oil and gas refining and marketing of all the energy stocks, these and the MLPs, but I would put these over the MLPs all day.
Yeah. So that's how you find winners.
By the way, these guys are trading up like crazy today, and they reported they crushed it, and they're trading up 3.5% as we speak.
So JC, any other charts? And I would go to some.
This is what we like to say, choo choo, motherfuckers. You know, that's this is one of those. Like, this thing is really getting going. You know, we're in. We think it goes a lot higher. But a good example to just circle back. The reason I brought this up, in addition to the fact that I like it, and we want to share ideas with the audience, is think about how many sectors you're talking about, Lindzon. Germany, semiconductors, financials, industrials. We're talking about oil and gas refining over here. You know, we're talking about consumer discretionary and travel and India. Like, there's a lot going on there. So to suggest it's only tech could mean one of two things. Either you actually haven't taken the time to look, or it's more sinister than that, and it's maliciously misleading your audience for whatever selfish intent you might have. Neither one of those are acceptable.
Yeah. Well, the other lesson is why I love doing the show every week is you're doing the work for me. So you need to, and Phil knows how to read this work behaviorally, but really you don't even have to do the work. You and I have been in this oil thing for a little while. But you know, I was never going to ride this thing from 17 to 170 because I don't understand the industry and I'm not a good enough investor, I guess. But there were big chunks of this that were quite obvious. And, you know, it's probably not as good today as it was at 15, but that's where money management comes in. And we don't know. Maybe it is just getting going. But again,
I think you got another 30-40% upside here, at least.
Okay. So good trade idea. Anything else, Jason? I want to pop through a couple ideas.
I mean, listen, we could do this all day, but I wanted to mention the Russell 2000 is the one that gets brought up a lot. You could just scroll down. You know, I like charts, as you guys know, and I like to bring a lot of charts. Sometimes I'm like, this is an extra good chart. Like, sometimes I will give myself kudos. Like, this is a good fucking chart, man. Like, this is the chart that I feel like people aren't thinking about because They got their heads up their asses. And scientifically, ask Perlman, he's a doctor. Scientifically, it's impossible to see what's right in front of you if your head is up your ass, right? It doesn't work. You can't see it. So people that are so obsessed.
You should take your head out of your ass before you attempt to observe anything. Really.
It's just physics, is it not?
It's a great thing about price, really. It's a great thing about price, and this is what we do, is the price is objective. It's just what it is. And it's not only confirmation bias. It's not only that we look for things that agree with what we're already thinking. Because we don't give a shit. It's that we look at things that we wish. We look at things through a lens of what we wish. And we're like, wish it to be true, so we bend reality. If you're looking at charts with a really good methodology, you're taking that out of the equation. Yeah. And that's why this is important. That's why, by the way, JC, that Howard's piggybacking on the things that you think and look, because he's a curator of people who are smart. He doesn't do the work himself. He looks for people, and you're basically doing great work. So he's piggybacking. It's a beautiful thing. I have nothing against that. It's a great strategy.
Well, I've done it on Fred Wilson, Chris Dixon, done it a little bit. Now sometimes I'm wrong, right? You have to go with people that don't just make sense, but they have a history of being right. Like, they can't always be wrong. Like, then you're just a sucker and you're watching the wrong people. And I don't know why people do that. Like, why people actually choose, for example, to follow people that have shown their hands. We see it in politics. We see it in the investing world. We see it in sports. It doesn't matter. It's just gambling. But JC, I mean, the thing that gets me back, I've gone down the rabbit hole of private markets, and I had a good run. And it's just, it's fun to come back to the public markets the last 3-4 years because of how stupid things were in the private markets, and really, use I call it the Peloton bill. I see it in cycling. You see it in birds when they flock. You see it in fish when they swim. You see it in the pilot fish that get behind the great white shark. This is a nature thing, and it's finally come to investing, right? In sports, it doesn't work because it's gambling, right? I'm all for the degenerate economy, but there's no edge unless you're cheating or you fix the game. In the markets, you can assume the whole game is fixed and there's still positive expectancy because of how price and volume and understanding catalysts work and following the right people. All right. So Riley, I have a few things.
Can we do the chart? Can we talk about why it matters?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Most important chart?
Russell 2000.
Keep going. Sorry.
So this is it.
Pull up the Russell, right?
Part of the bear thesis, part of this is not a bull market, JC, even though the market's ripped in my face for the last 18 months, is because the Russell 2000 is still far from making new all-time highs, while a lot of the large cap indexes are making new all-time highs. We already showed small cap industrials making new all-time highs, but small cap tech and small cap consumer discretionary, all three of those sectors have all been outperforming the S&P 500 this entire bull market. Small cap tech, small cap discretionary, right? And small cap industrials. And when you look back at bull markets, early on in those bull markets, what are the best performing sectors? Technology, consumer discretionaries, and industrials. So it's perfectly consistent with early cycle behavior. So when people are saying small caps are underperforming, the Russell 2000 is underperforming. But the small caps that are supposed to outperform are outperforming, right? Large caps are actually having a hard time keeping up. But what's in the Russell 2000 is that you're going to have 228 banks. You're going to have 251 biotech stocks. So a quarter of the entire index is regional banks and biotechs. So if regional banks and biotechs are not participating, by the way, very interest rate sensitive, as you guys are well aware, so it's more of a bond sort of situation. If regional banks and biotechs are working, the Russell 2000 will be working. If regional banks and biotechs are not, then the Russell 2000 will underperform. It doesn't mean it's a bull market or a bear market. It's just a sector rotation thing. If you're obsessed with the Russell 2000 for whatever, weird fetish you have, I would encourage you to look at regional banks and biotechs specifically, because that's what's going to drive this index. So understand what's driving a particular index. If you know small cap industrials, small cap tech, and small cap discretionaries have all been working and outperforming large caps. So small caps are working great. So I wanted to show that.
Thanks, buddy. Riley, do I have time to go through a few charts? I wanted to show people a couple things now that I've been back investing a little bit more in individual stocks, not just indexing. Riley, you just rip through them in order that I have them. Phil, I want Phil to comment because he's a Stocktwits user himself. Right. All right. What do we got first? All right. This is interesting. This is the SMCI chart. Now, the great thing about Stocktwits is that I've been following this for a couple months, noticing the base. And I want Riley to pull up because I don't, for people that are watching the show where really want to follow, I don't talk about stocks on Twitter, and I only talk about it a little bit in my newsletter. Riley, do you have some of my messages around SMCI? One of the great things about using Stocktwits is we track the price since you talked about it, right? And since we put it, and I remember writing this, because I've been following this stock, JC, and the thing that Stocktwits has that Twitter doesn't have or any social network has, we track how you think, right? Like everybody thinks you got to use these. Everybody should have a journal. And there's a million. You can have a Post-it note. There's no perfect way, but the idea is, and JC has his process, Bill has his process. So when we built Stocktwits, and it's still, perfect for this, is I don't necessarily tell people what to do. I use social media to tell people what I'm doing, just so I can go back and see how I was thinking. And the one little hitch that we added to Stocktwits is tracking price. So I remember looking at this stock and doing some work on it and going, this is an amazing base that is digesting this massive gain, right? And have a few shares just to track it. I didn't put on a real position. I just wanted to that's my mental note to own a few shares. It's up $197 since then. And we can pull up the chart. When I wrote that in Jan, and I wrote a bunch of stuff about it in January 8th, the stock had already, was flirting with that 300 base. And what fascinated me, JC, there was it wasn't giving an inch. And in fact, it was digesting 200 time gains. And sure enough, if you did a little work, you saw that it was just as important as NVIDIA to AI companies. And that my suspicion was this was going to go higher. I didn't put on a big trade. I didn't tell other people to buy it. But again, writing this stuff down, tracking. Oh, and by the way, SMCI, if we go to the stream, hang on, I'll pull up the number. You know how many followers there are on SMCI, which is just as important to the AI super microcomputer. 10,000 followers on Stocktwits, which was probably up from 2,000 a couple months ago. And NVIDIA has 600,000 followers. So
because it's a $30 billion company, and it was a lot smaller a couple of weeks ago.
Correct. But I'm saying 60 times more the attention. And this goes back to the Mohawk Petroleum.
By the way, this was a small cap. This was a small cap a couple of years ago.
So you don't have to go to CNBC. You don't have to go to the best financial sites. You have to just understand what industries are moving, kind of follow along some smart people. And one of the great things about Stocktwits, even if you don't get the idea, you can go back and see what you were thinking, because it's pattern recognition, suspicion, putting stories together. What's the next one we have, Riley? And so I urge people to just go journal. You don't have to make friends on Twitter or Stocktwits or FinTwit or Reddit. Go journal. This is MMYT, which JC and I were all over. Why were we all over it? We were all over it because it's like the base of all time. And it was India. And it's travel, which is massive. Okay. It had those things going. We don't need to know anything else. If we go to my messages on Stocktwits, we talked about it on the show. At least now I have moments in time where I can mark it, so I don't act myself as crazy. Relative strength, so good, right, JC? And I just documented it, and I said why we were long, and here we are. It's up 25% in this one we caught.
So 5% today alone.
Oh, it's up again today. So I'm saying
5%.
Use a journal. This is the lightest weight way to just track your idea. It's not for pounding your chest. It's for making sure you do the work. Right. Everybody has their own format. Phil has his own format. JC definitely has his own work format. It's not one form factor for all, but we built Stocktwits originally, and here we are 16 years later. The one feature that makes it the most important to me is not that I'm making friends. It's not that I'm fighting and trying to convince people to take my ideas. It's to try and become a better investor myself. And you can easily go from the stream and look back at all your posts. You just click the icon there and you can go see your own posts. Now you can go do that and troll other people, of course. And that's why a lot of people hate social media. So
well, what if it hits your target and then comes down after that?
Well, again, we have to build alerts and other things, JC, and this is what we've been talking about. So
what do you want? Get cut in half, and then 4 years later, it's giving you those numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We gotta change the timing.
Yeah, you can change the timing. We can, most of the time I'll let people know when I exit a position just because I have a habit of doing that. So people, so there's a history of me exiting it. But again, I'm only doing it for myself. If someone's going to use this to troll me, there's nothing I can do about that. But and again, I think this is about all social media, and Phil can chime in on this behaviorally. Social media, you get what you put in. I use social media, and this is why I use Twitter less and less, because I don't talk about stocks on Twitter. I don't feel like I want to talk about stocks on Twitter. This is my little home away from home where I do that. All right. Any other charts? Go ahead, Phil.
From a behavioral point of view, what I love about social media is that, number one, you can measure the vitriol. You can measure the hatred. And if the more people that have disdain for your idea, usually the better. Not always, but a lot of time. If you put something out there and just people think it's the most miserable idea, especially those people who just tend to be negative and just posting negative things at you, the more you get of that, the better. Like, that's the irony. That's the hidden gem of all social media. So you should never be thinking about how it damages your ego. If it's hurting your ego and that's too much for you, then you probably shouldn't even be on social media.
Quite the opposite. If everybody agrees with you, that's the problem. That's when the problems start. You want to look for everyone to disagree with you. That's a good thing. That means you're onto something.
Well,
you're really onto something.
Or no one is talking about it.
If everybody agrees for you, that could actually go on for a while. If everybody agrees with you, that's not as good an indicator, because things can just continue to go higher. Eventually,
Perlman, I'm a lot more opinionated about the markets on social media than you are, so trust me.
Right, when everybody agrees with you. So the inverse is also true. Okay, I get that.
The inverse is true, but the way that I use it, and I keep saying here, is find stuff that is working, that has a reason that it's working, and then hopefully no one's talking about it. And in this case, there's always someone talking about it, but relatively no one's talking about. And that's called stacking your odds and using your curiosity and suspicion to make money. And again, we're wrong all the time. The key is still always going to come down to when you're wrong, why are you wrong, cut your losses, when to cut your losses. So again, you're not going to be right all the time, but when you are right, start repeating that pattern of why you were doing it. And that's how you stack wins. Go ahead, Bill.
And number two, the other thing that I love is that there are actually many, the majority of people are wonderful and lovely, and some of them are very smart. And so sometimes you put an idea out there, something that you're noodling, and people reply and respond to that with things that you haven't thought of yet. So there also is this very pro-social aspect, this very connective, communal aspect to social media where people are augmenting. You get great ideas from them. It's a fantastic thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. Is there a couple other charts before we go? And then we'll end it with some health stuff.
I think that was most of them. But just regarding the China stuff, we touched on it a little bit last week. But like Global X is closing. Chart. Global X is closing.
The opposite of India. The opposite of India and the Russell is China, right? Not that there's a trade here, but Ram was talking about it last week. It's not my style, but the suspicions are stacking that no one wants to own China. And
I think one of the contra indicators that we've talked about is like funds closures and openings. And this last week, Global X is closing 11 Chinese ETFs.
Yeah. And I think I had a chart that I shared with you about. Yeah. It's not like Russia. Listen, when Zvanek shut Russia, nothing existed after. So it's saying you have to be careful of the one time you're wrong. This is why you don't like to fish. This is where everybody's leaving. You don't have to be the guy in the party holding the door down, right? Because that's how you get killed. But at the same time, my suspicions around China are that Americans are puking this up. We're going to start saying we'll never invest in China. I say it all the time because of Z. But there is something suspicious happening when everybody starts leaving. And, just thought that was
Could you say the
Phil?
risk of Xi is just as possible
No, lifetime.
on the upside? Well, no, just as possible on the flip side, where he could flip a switch and markets just go.
There is no risk. He will flip. Like, that's the point. And that's the guy who flips it. The question is, he flips it. When does he change his mind again? So it's like, you can go along China, but know that you're trying to gauge his mood. And I think that's the bet here. My suspicion is at some time he will own enough Chinese stocks, Z, that he will let other people into the game, right? Like, there's no benefit for him to see Alibaba go to zero. There is a benefit to him saying, okay, I've accumulated enough for the CCP. Again, this is me being suspicious and non-trusting, but what's the benefit of it going to zero? There is a benefit for it to going to a number where he says, you know what? Here's some money. Let's print, game back on. See, we own all the stock anyways. Let the stock triple. But you're just gaming Z. And that's a different type of game that I don't really think I have an edge in. But I think there's something brewing there. JC, any gutsy feelies there?
Yeah, I mean, I still need to see a little bit more. I think we're close. To your point here, I got the first chart here, Riley, as an interesting one. From a bigger picture standpoint, like Chinese internet, like just the indexes, Baba, Tencent, like the big ones, we're close, but I think there's still more work necessary to put, bottoms are not an event, they're a process. So I'm more interested in the things that are already working in China. And New Oriental Education and Technology, EDU, continues to work. I want to buy a breakout. We haven't gotten that breakout just yet, but if you see this thing above 83, that's my level. If you see a breakout above 83, I like a breakout there. I'm a creature of habit, and this habit has been, very fruitful. Buy the breakouts after the consolidation. Then this name, long way, not even close to the former highs. This thing, we're talking about buying it above 83. This thing was at 200. So we got a long way to go. So for me, I like to own things that are already working. So a breakout above 83 in the EDU. So it's based out of Beijing. It's like an education training company.
All right. That's all I have. I'm trying to think on the health side. We got, go ahead, Phil.
I got your health thing for you. So here's the thing. So I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. I'm watching the game this weekend, and the Ravens make every mistake you can make, right? Lamar, I mean, they've been great all year. They're a great team, incredible talent, and they got in their own head, right? Such a big game. Haven't been there many times before. Lamar's throwing interceptions, fumbles, personal fouls on defense to give Mahomes 15 yards, which is like the worst thing that you could do. Give the greatest quarterback, arguably of all time, free 15 yards and then another huge reception. Zay Flowers, and then he 55 yards, and then he gets called for a taunting penalty, which is just, that's juvenile mistake. So they beat themselves. And it just made me think about this idea of beating yourself, like in life and in your own health. And if you're doing stuff to just beat yourself, that's the problem. If you just stop doing things, if you just decrease the unforced errors, the dumb things, staying up too late, drinking too much, especially during the week, not moving your body, just very basic things that we all know. But if you can cut down the unforced errors, you don't even have to do anything spectacular. You don't have to run a marathon. You don't have to, be able to, lift 1,000 pounds, deadlift 1,000 pounds. You could just cut out the unforced errors. I mean, Kansas City didn't even play that great a game, but they had 0 turnovers. They had a low number of penalties. They had very few unforced errors. It was like judo. They let the other team lose instead of winning the game, which is beautiful. And I think that that's an analog for your health. If you could just cut out the unforced errors, that's my theme for the week. Just getting rid of the unforced errors, not making bad mistakes, not staying up at 1 o'clock in the morning and watching some shit movie on Netflix or whatever. that's really an important component of that. And I said it last week, days are getting longer. You could feel it. You could feel the vibrations,
I feel it.
baby. You wake up early in the morning, you could see that little bit of sun happening. Ooh, it's a vibration.
And going to
so no unforced errors. Don't be like Zay. You want to decrease the unforced.
It goes back to our first story, the golfer. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He's a smart guy. He knows there's alligators there. Could have used his golf club to grab that ball out of there, but he had surveyed the landscape. It was an unforced error. Stuck his finger in that fucking.
It's not worth the risk. You got to know. You got to know your risk tolerance.
Riley,
just take another ball.
Right.
You're an orthopedic surgeon. You need your hands.
Hey, dude, is that not the unforced error of all time? It's still in his head. And another unforced error, and it really is a good thing about investing, is that surround yourself with people that will. You don't have to know everybody in the invest. That's a thing that everybody thinks. They watch CNBC. They got to follow Ackman. They got to follow so and so. You only need to follow a few great investors, everybody. And they come in all shapes and sizes. They come from all different corners of the world. And you can find one.
JC, Howard, Nancy Pelosi.
Pelosi's the best.
What else you need?
Because
Jose Canseco.
Is he a good investor? There's the outfielder for the Phillies. The outfielder for the Phillies who had the option thing with Kramer. What the fuck was his name? We should have a tribute to all the fucking shenanigans. We should have a grifter week on Trends with Friends. With the Mad Dog. Now, what the hell was his name? Lenny Dykstra. Think of the charlatans that have come through this world.
He had like a swing trading service on
a swing trading option service. And the scam was,
that was before he went to jail, right?
And then
that was one of his earlier scams.
Yeah, his earlier scam. Here was his real scam. He was buying another guy's option service and just reselling that. That's how fucking great it was. That was just genius.
Great ball player, though. Great ball player.
Hell of a ball player.
Hold on. One more thing before we run. I wanted to share this. We got to go here. We got to go to Strip House in the Village. It's right around the corner from Japonica. Strip House in the Village on 12th and University. Throw up the first slide there. I'm sitting there having dinner with my wife, just minding my own business. Went to the Heat Knicks game. Then went out to dinner afterwards. Guess who sits right next to me?
Josh Brown? Josh Brown?
No, better.
Josh Brown's wife?
Better.
Nichols or Sparkles?
Sits right next to me.
It's Joe Weisenthal?
Him and his wife sit right next to me at the restaurant. And this is like one of those places where like the tables are right next to each other. Yeah. So we're basically, the four of us are out to dinner now.
Joe is channeling a new look every day. One day he's a hippie.
He looks good.
Right now, he looks good there.
He looks great. He's such a beautiful guy. I just love that.
His wife was lovely too.
If you knew him, he's a famous guy, but if you know him, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah, he's a famous guy, but we knew him when he was not famous, when he was just writing for us. We knew him when we were sharing.
This is why we need to go. Here's why we need to go, guys. We'll go all together. So there's a bone-in ribeye, right? Charred nicely, heavy on the pepper, right? Salt and pepper, heavy on the pepper. Slab of foie gras right on top. Look at that. Zoom in on that foie gras. And then if you really want to be extra gangster, then you got that roasted garlic there on the right. You take out a little piece of that garlic, spread on there as well. So much flavor, so much goodness. Some broccoli on the side, a Bordeaux. Forget about it.
Imagine eating that steak with a missing finger. Riley, just to remember, imagine having to dig into that steak with like half of what digit.
Health food, Perlman, right?
Yeah.
Health food. That's health food right there.
Duck liver? How good for you is duck liver?
Eat steak. Delicious. It's got all kinds of great stuff for your brain. Eat it. It's delicious and wonderful.
All right.
Pate,
but
duck liver.
What about the people that say you're torturing the ducks? What about those people?
Fuck them.
I have no idea. We're carnivores, man. We're omnivores.
That's a good place to end.
They're going to gorge themselves anyway.
That's just evolution.
They're just hungry. They're going to keep gorging themselves. So might as well.
There's no moral. If you don't want to eat it, it leaves more for us.
All right, next week.
Right? Next
week on Trends with Friends, degenerate luxury boy. Putting that thought in your head, we're a degenerate luxurians. The Four Seasons, the Ritz yachts. There's yachts now. We're going to have our first event from fucking the Four Seasons yacht. Have you seen this? Have you fucking seen this, JC?
You sent that to us,
I know,
right?
but
it looks very nice. And I'm not a big cruise guy, but that looks very nice.
I can guarantee you.
I can't imagine Lindzon on a cruise. It's going to be like a Larry David episode.
we're going to do look at this, JC. Can you imagine having a chart storm on fucking this bitch?
Chart summit, you mean?
A chart summit.
Charts.
Our first Trends with Friends summit.
How many rooms is it?
There's one room for us and 70 rooms for everybody else.
Is that what it is? 70?
No, I don't know. There's like a 4-story room in here. It's all glass. JC, go check it out. It's fucking, and then the Ritz has one too. So we can play them off each other. So we're not just beholden to the Four Seasons. So that's the dream. Trends with Friends Summit, 2025. I'm going to give us some time.
Wow, that would be sick. Can we make that happen?
We're making
Trends
it
with
happen.
Friends Lost at Sea.
This is called the Degenerate Luxurian event package.
If we could do that in the Mediterranean,
we're doing the Med. We're going a little 3 days in Tuscany, and then 3 days on one of these in the Med, and I'm putting that package together. I think we could pull it off, JC. It'll be expensive, but people will pay.
I'm in.
My
kids are going to be old enough by then. I already got
Phil
snipped.
better come. Phil's got to show up.
Looks great. I will travel for that. I would actually get on a plane and go for that.
Dude,
I would do it.
Yeah, but who's going to bring you your gummies? Who would you get? Who, if you had a?
I'm post gummies, bro.
No gummies, dude.
Gummies,
dude, that'd be the tag. That's going to be the tagline for the trip.
School.
The Degenerate Luxury Trip with Phil Howard.
All right, listen,
and
guys.
JC
I gotta go. Some of us have to work around here.
Oh, I gotta go.
Remember, some of us have to work.
Great. Adios.
You can get back to your vacation.